You are not even family.
It's enough for the wife to stay over there.
My mother-in-law and husband sneered at me. When I went to my in-laws' house, I was ordered to sleep in a basement with a temperature of 105 degrees Fahrenheit. With smirks on their faces, they went off to the air-conditioned living room. Enraged by their terrible treatment, I left the divorce papers and disappeared. Then, the next morning, there were 100 voicemails from my shocked husband. The revenge has only just begun. An epic tale of revenge was just beginning at that very moment. My name is Angela. 3 years ago, when I was 25, I married my husband Mark. I decided to be with him after hearing about his past, as he is 2 years older than me.
I'm from a small village, and I used to be quite the troublemaker. But when I was a freshman in high school, my father passed away.
That must have been so hard for you. As my husband confessed, lowering his gaze, I offered him comfort. I had also lost my parents at a young age, so my heart ached as if it were my own pain.
Soon after that, I moved to the city with my mom. I had to support her, so I turned over a new leaf and transformed into a serious, handsome guy. Just kidding.
Seeing him laugh shyly and puff out his chest, I thought I could have a happy life with an honest man like Mark. As expected, things went smoothly right after we got married. My husband was kind, and my mother-in-law warmly welcomed me, an orphan with no family ties. However, about a year and a half into the marriage, he started coming home late from work. Welcome back. It's already 1 a.m. Where have you been?
Oh, just out. I'm going to take a bath.
I would wait for Mark at the door late at night, turning on the entrance light to greet him. I also worked full-time, but I was worried, so I waited for him to come home no matter how late it was. But he would never tell me where he had been. Hey, Mark, your hands are all black. What have you been doing? By our second year of marriage, there were days when he would come home with his shirt covered in dirt. I found this suspicious and confronted him.
Stop nagging me all the time. Don't interfere with what a man does. Just shut up.
Mark yelled angrily, like a delinquent character in a drama. I was so shocked by his loud voice that I couldn't say anything in return. Moreover, my mother-in-law, Nancy, who lived 30 minutes away by car, also began to reveal her true colors.
I used to rule the village in my younger days. I didn't go to school and would ride my motorcycle around.
It seemed that my mother-in-law had once been part of a delinquent group, and she began to show up at our house in a car modified to make loud noises. She would use the spare key my husband had given her to enter our home without permission and take food and daily necessities.
Back in the day, I used to swipe goods from the supermarket without paying.
Nancy, if you need something, just tell me, and I'll prepare it for you. Please stop taking things without asking.
What? How dare a daughter-in-law speak so arrogantly? How cheeky.
No matter how many times I warned her, Nancy refused to listen and, worse, would rage and wreck the room before leaving. I'm at my wit's end. No matter how clearly I speak, it's like talking to a wall. But I knew I couldn't let things continue like this. I realized that sooner or later, I would have to have a serious conversation. One day, my husband took some time off for summer vacation, so we decided to visit his family home.
Usually, we just do day trips, but this time we'll be staying overnight.
What? I wish you had told me that sooner. Hearing about the overnight stay at the last minute, I hurriedly prepared the day before our visit. But maybe this is a chance for us to have a proper family talk. It could be an opportunity to clear up any misunderstandings. At this moment, I was still naively believing in the family bond, completely unaware of the true intentions of Mark and his mother.
You're late.
The next day, in the early afternoon, when my husband and I arrived at his family home, Nancy, with a cigarette in her hand, yelled at us as soon as she opened the door.
The traffic was bad. There was a slow car in front, and I was thinking of tailgating them real close.
In that case, you should just overtake them from the opposite lane, and if the cops chase you, shake them off.
Laughing as they walked into the house, Nancy and Mark looked like completely different people from when we got married. This is the first time I've seen Nancy smoke. I sat down quietly in the living room where I was shown, feeling slightly uncomfortable.
Angela, I need you to take care of the neighborhood association's accounting records.
As I was taking out a gift box of assorted jellies from my bag, a pile of receipts and papers was dumped on the table in front of me. When I looked bewildered at Nancy and the documents, she quickly snatched the gift from my hand.
I've been asked by my neighbors to take on the role of the accounting job.
With an exaggerated shrug, she tore open the wrapping paper of the jelly box. It was strange that someone like her, who boasted of playing around instead of going to school and not even knowing basic addition, would be asked to handle the accounts.
So, you need to finish the accounting work right away.
Right now? Me?
Ha! Are you saying you can't do it?
Startled by her demonic expression as she yelled at me, I instinctively glanced at Mark for help. However, my husband just started lounging around, watching TV as if it had nothing to do with him. Since we're staying here tonight, maybe it's my duty as the daughter-in-law to do at least this much. I tried to convince myself and searched on my phone for how to keep the books. Imitating what I saw, I began the accounting work, checking the receipts and past documents. However, no matter how much I worked, the job never ended, and it quickly turned to evening.
Oh, by the way, there's a summer festival in 2 days. Tomorrow we'll be busy with preparations, so you two will help with the stalls.
A summer festival? Exhausted from the accounting work, I couldn't help but cry out.
I'm heading out for a meeting tonight.
Unlike me, who was exhausted, Mark seemed to be excited about the summer festival, his voice bubbling with enthusiasm.
It's just a drinking party, right? Well, that's how adults enjoy summer festivals.
Nancy chuckled and finally took out the chilled jelly from the refrigerator and started eating it by herself. Then, my husband went out for his meeting, and Nancy said she was going out for dinner with friends. They both left the house by 6 p.m. After that, I was alone, calculating until late at night. They finally returned around 11 p.m., with Mark completely drunk and Nancy louder than usual.
Tomorrow is the day before the festival. Time to sleep.
Oh, Angela, you sleep in the basement.
As soon as they came back, Mark and Nancy led me to a small, windowless basement. What is this place? It's so hot. As soon as I opened the door, a heavy, damp heat wafted out, and when I looked at the thermometer in the room, the temperature was 105 degrees Fahrenheit. There was only one moldy, old mattress inside.
For the wife, this place is good enough.
That's right. You're not even family.
When I looked at the two of them in disbelief, they both snickered, saying, "You should be grateful we even prepared a mattress for an outsider. This can't be. If I sleep here, I'll get heatstroke." I pleaded desperately, asking them to at least let me sleep on the living room sofa. But at that moment, Nancy shot me a sharp glare.
Ha! A stranger like you is being so selfish. We'll talk after you finish the remaining accounts.
She shoved all the accounting documents into the basement, her breath reeking of alcohol.
Tomorrow is the festival preparations. We're leaving early in the morning.
Mark, completely drunk, spat out these words before heading back to the air-conditioned living room with Nancy. It's too hot in here to do any calculations. And we can't even have a family conversation. I found the basement suffocating, so I went out into the night garden to cool off and think about what to do. Then, from inside the house, I heard Nancy's voice as she talked on the phone with a neighbor. I strained to listen and heard her saying something I never expected. "What? Is that what this is about? Fine, I'm ending this marriage today." Learning the terrifying truth, I was filled with rage. I waited until the family was asleep, then quietly researched the necessary documents and procedures for a divorce. I printed the required papers and placed them smack in the middle of the basement. Well, tomorrow will be interesting. I smirked and left the in-laws' house, deciding to stay at a nearby business hotel. I could hardly sleep that night, but the next morning, I was in a great mood. I received numerous calls from my husband, and there were 100 voicemails. When I played them back, I heard Mark's loud voice saying,
"What's the meaning of leaving divorce papers like that?"
My mother-in-law also shouted,
Are you planning not to come for the summer festival preparations? You stupid wife!
However, their voices gradually toned down, and by late morning, they had changed to something pitiful, almost on the verge of tears. It seems like it's just the right time. Sensing what might have happened, I decided to head to the summer festival preparation site, carrying a paper bag. When I arrived at the site, I was met with the sound of shouting.
"What is the meaning of this?"
William, the neighborhood chairman, who was almost 70, was furiously questioning my husband and mother-in-law. The two of them were pale-faced, stammering nervously. The people from the neighborhood were looking on from a distance, their faces puzzled as they watched the situation unfold. Seeing the scene develop as I had expected, I felt a triumphant cheer inside, and I called out to William. "Hello. Thank you for having me." As I appeared nonchalantly, Mark and Nancy became furious.
Where have you been? Give the financial report immediately.
You were so happy to say, "I'll handle it," and worked on the books yesterday.
The two of them came at me so aggressively that I instinctively took a step back. William stood between us, as if to protect me. He held 3 sheets of paper in his hand. I delivered those complaint documents to William's house last night. I pointed to the documents in William's hand and raised my voice, so everyone around could hear. Mark and Nancy were startled by my sudden loud voice. Mark and Nancy have been embezzling the neighborhood association's budget. When I declared this loudly, the people in the neighborhood murmured, "What?
What are you talking about? You crazy girl!
Have you gone mad from the heat or something?
Panicked, my husband and mother-in-law turned red and lashed out at me. But I ignored them and explained to William and the people gathered for the summer festival preparations. Actually, while I was doing the accounting the day before, the budget set by the neighborhood association and the amount spent just didn't match up. The same was true for the summer festival. No matter how many times I recalculated, the numbers didn't add up at all. I mentioned to Nancy, maybe some receipts are missing? But Nancy yelled at me.
Just make the numbers match up.
And insisted I enter the books as if the entire budget had been used up. The more I thought about it, the more troubling ideas came to mind. In reality, they haven't used the entire budget. So what happens to the leftover money? No way. And that night, when I couldn't bear the heat in the basement and went out to the garden, I heard the sound of drunk Nancy yelling on the phone near the vent. She seemed to be talking on speakerphone, and I could clearly hear the person on the other end of the line. A neighbor, sounding apologetic, said, "I've always handled the accounting every year, so I did it again this year." Then, the next moment, my mother-in-law replied,
Leave it to me. After all, I'm quick with numbers, and I was great at studying too.
And then, in a hushed tone, she continued,
Since there are fewer people in the neighborhood, it seems the summer festival budget has been cut in half. Even William seemed disappointed.
She added,
So, make sure not to mention anything about the budget, okay?
She repeated this several times. I widened my eyes in shock. Because I knew the neighborhood budget hadn't changed by a single dollar from the previous year. At that moment, I was convinced that Mark and Nancy were planning to pocket the neighborhood funds. That's why I informed William last night about your embezzlement of the neighborhood funds with a letter and documents. I looked straight at my husband and mother-in-law in front of me.
Oh, no! This girl is just mistaken. She probably made a calculation error.
Yeah, you. You're such an idiot.
With strained smiles, they shrugged at the neighbors, as if to say, what a troublesome wife. No, there is more proof. When I took my smartphone out of my bag, Mark and Nancy looked at me with puzzled expressions. The sound is a bit low, so I'll play it through this speaker. I spoke to William standing next to me, borrowed a speaker nearby, and connected my phone. Then, the whole venue was filled with a loud recording of a conversation between Mark and Nancy.
It turns out it's pretty easy to pocket the neighborhood funds.
With this, we can pay off the debt, no problem.
The night before, after she finished her call with the neighbor, Nancy started talking to Mark, and I had recorded it on my phone. Upon hearing their plot being exposed, they both let out a small scream, and the recording cut off abruptly.
You too. So you were embezzling after all.
William, veins bulging on his temples, confronted my husband and mother-in-law. They realized it was impossible to continue covering up their theft. After a brief moment of silence, Nancy furrowed her brows deeply, putting on a troubled face.
William, I'm so sorry. I was struggling to make ends meet, and I did something terrible.
Nancy looked down meekly, like a pitiful heroine in a tragedy.
We're a single-parent family, right? Mom went through so much to raise me. I'm sorry. I just wanted to make things easier for her in the wrong way.
Mark, loudly apologizing as if to protect his mother, appeared to be the perfect picture of a devoted son. Even William seemed moved, his stern eyes softening with sympathy. I didn't miss the look on their faces, which said, "We've got this." Well, then, in the next recording, you must be saying something honorable. Smiling, I pressed the speaker button once more. After a burst of static noise filled the venue, my husband and mother-in-law's conversation came through again.
Next, I want to buy a foreign car and drive it around.
If I handle the neighborhood accounting for a few years, it should be a breeze. Just recently, I bought a brand name bag.
People around here are really stupid, aren't they?
Their vulgar laughter echoed throughout the festival venue, and the neighborhood people began murmuring in disapproval. Surrounded by cold stares from the crowd, Nancy and Mark turned pale. Nancy, could this brand name bag you bought with the membership fees be this one? Amidst the murmuring, I pulled an orange handbag from the paper bag I had prepared since morning and held it up high. Before coming to the venue, I had checked that they were not at home and fetched it from the house. A neighbor shouted,
Look! That's the luxury brand bag she was flaunting before!
Aw! When did you get that?
Nancy screamed and ran toward me. I lifted the bag above my head, swinging it left and right so she couldn't reach it.
Hey! That was bought on an installment plan, before we got the neighborhood money. Be careful with it.
Mark, with a frantic look on his face, ran up and snatched the bag from my hand. As we continued to glare at each other, William's voice echoed over the now silent festival grounds.
Luxury brands, foreign cars. All lies. What do you think the neighborhood dues are for?
Exactly. They're treating it like their personal wallet. I stood next to William and pulled out more documents from the paper bag. It turned out that Mark and Nancy were obsessed with modifying cars, and they were pouring a lot of money into that, too. Mark had been coming home late at night with dirty shirts because he was working on cars. They had also been secretly spending money on gambling and shopping. The most shocking discovery was that they had even dipped into the $20,000 savings account that we had built together. Mark had claimed to have become serious after his father's death, but he had never really stopped being a bad boy. You must have had a lot of fun racking up $80,000 in debt. I pulled out a promissory note from the paper bag and waved it in front of them. Before coming to the festival, I had found not just the bag but also the debt acknowledgement and receipts from the company handling the car modifications. Exposed for their debts, Mark and Nancy trembled, their lips quivering, their faces as pale as ghosts.
To use the fees everyone paid for such things. Unforgivable.
William scolded them, looking at the documents I had presented.
By the way, Mark, you seem to be in a great mood at last night's drinking party.
William suddenly brought up the party my husband had gone to, claiming it was a meeting. William was a local notable. He had shown up briefly at the party before leaving for other greetings and work elsewhere. Once William left, Mark apparently let his guard down, drank heavily, and bragged about his past misdeeds as if they were heroic exploits. Quite ridiculous for someone his age. I felt embarrassed, but my husband had done more than that. He had persistently hit on a young woman who had just turned 20, trying to get her to go out with him. Attendees around him had repeatedly tried to stop Mark, but he was too drunk to listen to any of them.
No way I would do something like that while married.
Oh, but you were flirting.
You left early, So you didn't see anything?
Mark pouted like a child, and William sighed in exasperation.
You fool! The girl you were hitting on was my dear granddaughter. I heard everything straight from her.
My husband's face drained of color at this unexpected turn of events. Seeing this, the neighbors around us chuckled and said, "That's why we tried to stop you." Well, even if she wasn't the chairman's granddaughter, it's still unacceptable. Looks like this marriage is definitely over. I left the divorce papers in the basement. Did you sign them properly?
No. I haven't signed them yet. Come on, I was just drunk. We only took the neighborhood funds because we lost our heads for a moment.
Yes, we just got carried away. Let's turn over a new leaf and start over.
You're the only one I love. It's always been you.
Nancy and Mark tried to get closer to me, pleading. But their words no longer meant anything to me. William, do you think I can get compensation for the matter with your granddaughter? I loudly asked the chairman, ignoring the two of them.
I'll ask the lawyer we always work with, but if the man who flirted with my granddaughter is single, it might just be considered romance.
William replied, scratching his chin. Hearing this, my husband quickly signed the divorce papers. As soon as Mark finished writing his name, I snatched the document and put it in my bag. Even if you're single now, you were married when you were harassing her, so it still counts.
That's right. First, we'll have a proper trial for the embezzlement.
William and I exchanged glances and grinned. Realizing he had been tricked, Mark glared at me and ground his teeth.
If you had just kept quiet, none of this would have happened.
Nancy stomped her feet angrily. That's naive thinking. Even if you tamper with the books, the neighborhood will conduct an audit at the end of the year. Such sloppy embezzlement was bound to be discovered. I replied with a sigh, and my mother-in-law and husband looked dumbfounded. I'm cutting ties with you both. I'll demand alimony for the divorce, and you'll pay for your embezzlement. I pointed directly at them, delivering the final blow. Surrounded by William and the neighbors, Mark and Nancy collapsed to their knees, crying out in despair. Just then, the police car I had called before arriving at the venue pulled up, and my slumped husband and mother-in-law were taken away. After that, I immediately submitted the divorce papers and cut all ties with the two of them. William filed a lawsuit over the embezzlement of the dues, and now the two of them are behind bars. Even when they are released, they'll be shunned by the neighbors, and it will be impossible for them to continue living in their current home. Moreover, they will have to pay $20,000 in divorce alimony, $10,000 for half of the embezzled savings, and $80,000 in debt for their extravagant lifestyle. They will likely face days filled with debt, without a home or money. By the way, regarding the summer festival, which had caused such a stir, the problem was discovered at noon the day before the festival, so everyone in the community hurriedly worked together. They managed to buy the prizes and food according to the original budget, and the festival turned out to be as lively as ever. Having exposed their wrongdoing, I found myself quite favored by William.
You've got guts. How about running for city council? I'll support you.
He's even suggested that I run for office. I might just make my debut in the political world. How did you enjoy this story? Don't forget to subscribe to the channel. See you in the next video.